Just a month ago, no one could believe this, but today it is the harsh Russian reality. Having previously attacked Ukrainian territory almost with impunity, now Russia itself is experiencing the arrival of ballistic and cruise missiles.
It can be applied close, meaning its maximum range will be 300 kilometers. We are already talking about the Krasnodar region.
The results of the first strikes and the prospects opened up for the Ukrainian armed forces by Washington and European leaders permission to strike Russia. What Russia managed to take out of the line of fire and which targets will certainly be destroyed. Watch right now on Arsenal. The very first strike with British missiles on Russia marked the complete failure of the Russian air defense. According to some reports, 2 out of 12 missiles were shot down, while others claim none were intercepted. The results of this strike on the command post in the Kursk region were phenomenal. 500 North Korean soldiers and several dozen Russian officers were eliminated. Hundreds of military personnel were injured. But following the British missiles, American ballistic missiles were launched a few days later. In the same Kursk region, first the Kursk-Vostochny airfield was attacked, and later the Halina air base.
This is an airfield near Kursk? Where military aircraft are based and civilian planes also take off from there.
Each such strike on Russian territory is a small tactical victory. This is not a turning point in the war. Well, yesterday, a large strategic arsenal of the Russians was destroyed. If another and another and another such arsenal is destroyed, these are missiles, these are drones. This means less and less damage that the Russians can inflict on the front, so it's not a matter of weeks or even months for such a thing to work. It is certainly working. I think that with each passing day, thanks to this decision, it will be easier for people to fight on the front. Fewer bombs, fewer lancets fall on them. Arrive.
And this is just the beginning, experts believe. The capabilities to strike and penetrate Russian air defenses are only being explored by the Ukrainian General Staff now. Meanwhile, analysts are already eagerly creating maps with zones where Western missiles can reach. Moreover, it seems this trend was set out of fear. The Russians themselves.
If it functions effectively, for instance, from deep within Ukraine, somewhere near Kiev or Vinnytsia and Kryvyi Rih, then cities like Kursk and Rostov-on-Don will fall within its range. It's clear that all of these frontline areas, such as Luhansk and Donetsk, Kherson, Zaporizhzhia regions, if they dare to move it somewhere in the Dnipropetrovsk region, for example, its range will be even further. That means cities like Voronezh, Tula will be within reach. Crimea will be within reach. It can even be used very close by. That is, its maximum range will be 300 kilometers. Then we are talking about the Krasnodar region.
Thus, the Russian Federation assesses the current capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces. Speaking of the American ballistic missiles ATACMS, we currently officially have missiles in the MGM-140A modification, with a strike range of about 1,500 kilometers. This means that a dozen military airfields are under threat in Crimea, Voronezh, Kursk, Bryansk, and a number of other cities.
There are facilities that you simply cannot move anywhere. In general, this is immovable property. Headquarters, some communications, warehouses, repair bases, storage bases of equipment where people are located. That is, there are many targets that can be hit, causing significant harm to the enemy.
Moreover, even considering that Russia has relocated most of its aircraft deeper into the country, the ATACMS strikes still create enormous, often insurmountable problems for enemy aviation.
It is now widely known that the Russians have strategically relocated those strategic airfields that were previously within the effective range of ATACMS, specifically with a firing range of 185 to 506 kilometers, way beyond the boundaries of this area. But we understand that by moving the airfields 300 kilometers away, it reduces the operational capabilities of the aircraft, and especially helicopters, because they need to fly 300 kilometers to the front line and back. And I don't even really know how to solve this problem for helicopters.
Meanwhile, within the missile range, the enemy is completely deprived of the ability to amass forces and equipment.
What is the peculiarity of ATACMS? Cluster. Warhead. That is, they explode and cover an area of about 1 square kilometer. And they hit all of the various different pieces of equipment concentrated in that area.
Another significant and complex major threat facing the Kremlin is the logistics of the grouping in Ukraine. Now, any centralized supply of ammunition, food, or reserve transport indeed turns into a lottery.
Besides the logistics base, these are, in any case, the locations of personnel. These are command points that are located quite deep in the rear. This may also include strikes on various infrastructure objects, including bridges.
Speaking of another ace up the sleeve of the armed forces of Ukraine, they have become the SCALP and stormshadow missiles. The British-French development flies for 300 kilometers and covers twice the area. This includes Anapa, Volgodonsk, Lipetsk, and even Tula, where there are also many interesting military targets for the Ukrainian army.
The same applies to Russian depots, Russian command points, and other strategic facilities, since currently they are directly in the crosshairs, and the impact of such a missile. It completely destroys even well-prepared deep command posts such as these.
At the same time, despite the Russians' claims of shooting down the stormshadow, in reality, there were hits. Therefore, the stories about the omnipotence of the Russian air defense once again turned out to be a myth.
They cannot shoot down, create faster acting systems that would react faster, fly faster, and be controlled faster. That is, that they need to have faster processes and more advanced and sophisticated, faster computers that would calculate the trajectory in order to destroy these missiles. They simply cannot do this.
Meanwhile, having received additional carriers for these aviation missiles in the form of Western fighters, some analysts do not rule out that the missiles have also changed. From the export version, with a range of 300 kilometers, to the internal British-French version, with a range of up to 1,000 kilometers.
Previously, they were launched from Su-24 aircraft. Now they say that F-16 aircraft can be used. And this also gives us many opportunities to launch these missiles. And again, the firing range. This will be a surprise for the enemy, but I think it could be more substantial than the export version. At 300 kilometers, this will seriously and significantly affect the enemy's capabilities, both in terms of their immediate combat units and in terms of logistics and overall effectiveness.
At the same time, the additional charm of the SCALPs and stormshadow is that they are not Russian developments that hit randomly. In conclusion, therefore, for positive results, a relatively small number of missiles and aircraft are needed.
A huge number of launch systems are needed for their use. Launch systems for them, several units of such aircraft, up to 10. Because this weaponry is not mass-produced, and it is necessary specifically for the precise destruction of enemy targets.
We will see very soon what specific targets these will become. After all, we did not stop striking Russia even after Putin's attempt to respond with his own forces. If you like this video, then don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to our new Arsenal channel. The link is in the description below the video. These are the best missiles that the Allies have provided us since the start of the full-scale war. practically unreachable for enemy air defenses. Capable of penetrating any bunker, the stormshadow missiles continue to tally successfully hit Russian targets. And this count is already in the dozens. The history of its creation is quite long. Essentially developed based on the French Apache missile in the mid-90s, the stormshadow entered service in the early 2000s. The air-launched missile was intended for tactical aviation aircraft such as fighter jets, which is why its use today is possible with any multi-role fighter. Its main advantage for Ukraine is its low visibility and a range of up to 300 kilometers. There is also a version with a range of 560 kilometers. But according to open sources, such versions have not yet been delivered to Ukraine. And 300 kilometers more than adequately cover key targets in the territories occupied by Russia. Incidentally, even beyond those areas, which is why there was already a panic in Rostov.
Please kindly show us the specific Russian and Belarusian cities that fall within the potential strike range.
But for striking targets on Russian territory, we have other weapons, so Olenka's efforts were in vain. However, against those invaders who came to Ukraine, they will definitely be used, including the stormshadow. And they will fly with extreme precision. The missile has a combined guidance system, which practically eliminates the chance of missing even a moving target. However, the primary mission for these missiles is the destruction of command posts, logistics, and concentrations of enemy equipment.
It is designed to strike even deeply buried bunkers. It should be understood that for this missile, there are even more interesting targets now than the Crimean Bridge. And we're talking about a large number of air bases, particularly in the territory currently occupied in Ukraine.
The warhead of the missile weighs almost half a ton, and it has a tandem charge. That is, the first part penetrates the ground, concrete structures, or armored barriers. And the second part explodes inside the target, which practically leaves no chance for the enemy.
It can be programmed for either an airburst or an underground detonation. In the case of an airburst, both charges explode simultaneously. So in a way, it's a unique missile.
The missile also has several guidance systems for targeting, which makes it an extremely precise weapon. The stormshadow is equipped with inertial H satellite and DISMAC systems.
Here, the GPS system is shown. This is the navigation that constantly adjusts the missile's flight to ensure it travels in the correct direction. Because if it maneuvers between mountains, then a matter of tens of meters is crucial to ensure it doesn't crash into a hill, like Russian missiles that have hit houses and small hills.
Another extraordinary capability of the stormshadow that experts highlight is its invulnerability to Russian air defense systems. This is implemented in a straightforward, simple manner. The altitude at which the missile approaches the target is 30-40 meters above the Earth's surface.
It is, let's say, a universal missile in its own right, which will allow the Ukrainian armed forces to effectively neutralize the crimes of the Russian air defense on occupied territories. The combined guidance system allows it to bypass air defenses. It should be noted that, well, let's say this cruise missile flies at low altitudes at very low levels, carefully skirting around the terrain. That is, it is effectively outside the range of Russian air defenses.
On radar, such an object remains simply invisible. And even in the case of acoustic detection of the missile, the systems won't have time to destroy it manually.
Russian air defense systems, including the conditionally modern ones like the S-400 and others, have the capability to detect and destroy objects flying at low and ultra-low altitudes starting from a threshold of 40 meters. This means that this missile is effectively out of reach of Russian air defenses.
And here Western designers managed to combine, as they say, the pleasant with the useful. The fact is that flying at such an altitude over the terrain requires constant altitude adjustment. Therefore, this route is pre-planned. And it can serve as an additional guide for the missile if the enemy manages to jam some of the navigation systems. For example, with electronic warfare complexes.
The missile flies at an altitude of 30-40 meters. That is, the radio altimeter is constantly working to ensure that the missile does not come into contact with the surface. At the same time, it scans the terrain and compares it with the data stored in the database. In this way, it duplicates the inertial navigation system and GPS.
At the same time, the missile is capable of reaching speeds of up to 1,000 kilometers per hour. With a total weight of 1,300 kilos and a warhead of 450 kilo, it can fly a distance of up to 300 kilometers. It is slightly over 5 meters long with a wingspan of about 3 meters. The stormshadow remains invisible to the enemy with an operational flight altitude of 30-40 meters. But its effectiveness is best demonstrated not by its specifications but by facts. Just this month, the stormshadow has already made its mark at the Sevastopol ship repair plant.
Smoke rising there. From my yard, you can see the glow over there.
There, by the way, it managed to destroy the landing ship Minsk, and for the first time, cruise missiles penetrated a Russian submarine worth about $300 million. Among the latest achievements of the British storms is the strike on the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol.
So it has begun. Explosions. Explosions there at explosions in the city center.
It is known that at the moment of impact, a meeting was taking place inside. According to preliminary information, as a result of the attack, at least 9 officers of the fleet's command staff were eliminated. The number of injured is being clarified.
Missiles go!
The number of these missiles in Ukraine's arsenal is naturally not disclosed, but the regular explosions in the still occupied Crimea and their announced continuation by the head of the main intelligence directorate, Kirilo Budanov, suggest that Western weaponry is far from running out. Did you like this video? Then subscribe to our channel and don't forget to give it a thumbs up. This will definitely help us grow, and you won't miss new episodes of Arsenal.